Hello, everybody. It is 6:04 p.m. Central Time on the 15th of October, 2020. It's Thursday here in the United States. Hope you're doing well. We are here to talk about a few things. I got some breaking news for everybody. On top of it all, we've got a big fire outbreak going on in Arizona, central Arizona, as well as some earthquakes that have broken out, rare earthquakes down in Alabama in the south of the United States, and new 3.0 activity that broke out across the area in question from the West Coast all the way in the Pacific Northwest since yesterday, all the way down to the creeping section of the San Andreas and over to Texas. But what I'm concerned about is the new fire that has popped off here and a series of hot spots that are developing right here in southeast Washington now. And so first, let's go look up the fire locations and keep in mind where the earthquake is. And we'll do both. We're going to look up the earthquakes and the fires. So let's get the fires on here. And this is actual fire detection, so it's not a hot spot per se down here in Arizona. We're talking real deal fire. You can see it even with the smoke here on the most recent imagery from GOES right there. And here we are throughout the night. It's all clear, sunrise, all clear. And then suddenly, clear day, boom, one there. And it looks like one also down at the border over to the east-southeast carries on for several days. But this one here, the new one that just popped off, again, you should be able to see the smoke on that rising. And that's invisible. We can go over to shortwave, and it shows as a black splotch here. Okay, so I'm going to turn on our borders and labels. Let's just see if we can get that. Product overlays, mapping, counties. Okay, so the reason I'm doing this is so we can figure out exactly where the fire is as opposed to the earthquake. And we also have the place marks over on Google Earth, which should help. So let's get the info on the 3.3 from yesterday, or 2 days ago now. So this 3.3 struck on the 13th, 2 days ago, 48 hours ago. It's a rare earthquake on the east side of the San Francisco volcanic field. Now we have a huge fire breaks out in Arizona as well. I just want to see again how far we are. Here's our earthquake epicenter. And the new fire, well, here it is right here. Okay, let's get a measurement. It's not that far, guys. It's pretty darn close. I mean, for the whole state of Arizona, we are within, let's say, well, here, let's get the actual measurement on that. Let's get that in miles. We are within 80 miles, 80 miles to the center of the fire. So 80 miles, or for my international audience, let's do that in kilometers. We are 130 kilometers. Considering where we are in relation in the state, it's actually pretty close. So the fire, sudden outbreak there, that's just the start of it. Again, you can see it in infrared here in a big black mass, or we can look at the natural color fire view. This is the most recent image there, and it just breaks out on a clear day. Boom, right there all of a sudden. And let's just zoom in on the spot where the fire actually is, see if there's anything of any significance nearby. Again, there might not be anything of any significance nearby at all. Spring Valley, Cords Lake, Mayer. Zoom in some more. Again, there's no structures here. I don't even see any roads for that matter. I mean, there might be some backwoods country road right there. What do we have here? Skull Valley, of all things. Oh, God. What is this? Some kind of community? A community of houses out here in Prescott. Okay. I don't see anything else of any significance nearby. There is another hotspot over here to the east. And this spot here doesn't have anything as well. It's in the middle of nowhere. Not even any roads at the spot. Maybe over a couple miles to the west there are. That's one hotspot. The rest, the really intense hotspot, is the fire that we're looking at here. But the other hotspot is down to the east-southeast, right over here. You just can't see it. It's just a hotspot being detected without any smoke signature yet. Now, speaking of that, let's go up to the northwest. Let's go up here to Washington. And it looks cloudy, and I think it's been raining up there recently, so let's go turn on our shortwave infrared Washington State. Actually, let's look at a regional subsector view of the whole state. And, oh wait, let me turn off my product overlays. There we go. So we're going to look in the southeast corner of Washington going over into Idaho. Watch this. This is today now. Look at that. And there's a couple down in Oregon too, at the Oregon-Washington border. But look at that, guys. It's just a cluster, just like in the New Madrid seismic zone, which, by the way, the New Madrid has a bunch of clouds over it, so we cannot see what's going on there right now. Like, even with the infrared, it's like thick enough cloud cover that it's just blocking everything out. Again, I'm going to say it. Look, that's a Christmas tree effect that's flaring off each one. Look, each frame is 5 minutes. Okay, so in a 5-minute frame, they go and then they're gone. And each one's several acres wide. It's just a burst of heat. So that's Washington, northeast Oregon, and northwest Idaho. Okay, let's see if there's any more, because where there's one, there's more. We have the event going on down in Arizona. We have the hotspots up in Washington. Let's just go look in California, see what's going on there. Of course, the fires are still going on just west of the supervolcano, just west of Long Valley Caldera. And we've been paying attention to that for the past couple months, these different volcanoes. Oh, wait, look, up here in the Central Valley, a sudden burst of heat out here in the Central Valley, northeast of the Bay Area. Let's just go figure out what's there. Let's go in on a localized sector in Northern California. We might have to go the next step up here. Okay, we need to look up here and just see what's going on in the middle of the center of the valley. There. That's the new spot. It's flickering in the middle of the valley. Let's get a triangulation on that, just like we did on the others. Let's get the county lines and just see where the fire is. The fire's right at the county line between two counties, so that should be pretty easy to find. There's like a notch to the north side of the county there. So let's go over to Google Earth and go up into California. Okay, here, right where this hotspot is, right there. Okay, well, we know what's right next to this. West Butte and South Butte, where they've drilled into the volcano a whole bunch of times. Steam, geothermal, as well as oil and gas come out of that. And they're all across here. They go down to the south, and up here to the north, there's a few mixed out here into the fields. Few pads. You see the pads there. And a hotspot there. Just one lone hotspot. Come on. So what are we getting at with this? These hotspots are showing up. I think, again, it's pretty obvious they're along the plate boundaries, and it's when the plate starts shifting up to the northwest. We've seen hotspots out in the ocean, so people can't tell me it's farmers burning their fields or anything when we've seen the hotspots out in the ocean before. I'm not saying they're happening now that way, but we have in the past. And when you see them just up in Washington, for instance, we know it's not farmers burning their fields. That would happen all over the country that way. You know, it does look like we have a couple that flare up in Northern California suddenly. We do. There's two popping off in Northern California right now, as I'm talking. The most recent images. Let's go down here. It's where a previous fire was, I think. Looks like two more are flaring off right now. Yeah, right here and here. You can see the smoke on them. And just to show you that they weren't going before, let's go back to the start of the day. Here we are last night going in this morning. Just slightly warm. And then today, there. That's the most current. It's flaring up right now. That's Northern California. So we have Arizona, Southern California, or Central California, Northern California, hotspots up in Washington, and then to top it all off, The earthquake that popped off in Arizona, which is rare, 80 miles away. 80 miles away. Let's go look at the tremor map and see what's going on with the tremors. I already checked earlier. It's less tremors on the 14th. Yesterday, we went down to, let's just say, 300. But the spread on that is going all the way across. Washington still. Going back to the day before the 13th, 639. So again, we cut in half, basically, from where we were, but it's still going. It'll be interesting to see where it is today. Is it going to be less or more? If it's less and it starts to wind down, that's when we look for the earthquake to strike on the perimeter of the area that's shifting. Perimeters. It's all very interesting to see that happen, but I got to get back to the hotspots because we're not done yet. So fire in Arizona, fire in California. Hotspots up in Washington, going down into the Oregon border and over into Idaho. Over here in Colorado, northern Colorado is still burning. And we had a fire down near Colorado Springs too, but that got under control apparently. But the fires in Colorado, I mean, all of this matches the deformed and regular edge of the craton, including Colorado right here at the center portion of Colorado going up into Wyoming. That's right where the craton edge is. I don't think it's a coincidence. There's too many of them. Also, people with the farmer field thing. Look, we've seen the hotspots out in the ocean. We've seen the hotspots over on the West Coast at all times of year, so it doesn't matter. It's when the plates start shifting is when these hotspots start to show up. So you can't tell me it's farmers burning their fields out in the ocean, and you can't tell me it's farmers. It doesn't explain the directed energy weapon aspect, the beams, not explained, or the earthquake swarm that struck. The earthquakes that are striking next to the hotspots. Now, we're looking at everything 2.9 and greater, and the equal distance spacing on this should be even obvious to somebody who's never seen this before. How the one ring overlaps with the other, but I can even turn the rings off and you still should be able to see. Well, actually, we're looking at 2.8 and greater, but the equal distance spacing, equidistant spacing of the quakes. And the magnitudes on these, where the largest of the bunch is in the middle on the creeping section of the San Andreas. And it's not just anywhere on the creeping section of the San Andreas. It's right here along the coast, just south of Monterey Bay, and right next to our previous 2.8. They're parallel to one another on the San Andreas. But let's go look south of Monterey Bay. Go see what's there. Look. So the earthquake, actually, just to be specific, let's get the coordinates on this. Lopez Point, California. And we'll just paste and search these in Google Earth. Because look what's here. Okay, there's the earthquake epicenter. And look what's right next to it. A hotspot signature from yesterday. 481 Kelvin. Just one little burst. That's it. Nothing else. One little burst of heat. Not a fire. Burst of heat. And we have an earthquake next to it. Today. So the burst of heat was yesterday, and then today we have a new 3.4 earthquake after a period without any threes on the creeping section for a while. Meanwhile, it's the same sized activity going down the edge of the craton. One more time, look at that craton diagram. Idaho, Utah, going down to Texas. Same sized earthquakes too. Idaho, above the magma chamber for Yellowstone. Even though Yellowstone comes up here at the surface at the park at Wyoming, it's 11 Grand Canyons in size and goes all the way over to Oregon. Where the center of it, the center of the deepest part of the feeder for Yellowstone, is right below here in Idaho. And again, it's on the deformed edge, going into the craton edge. Then, going down here into Utah, a new development, a 3.3. Well, why does that matter? Well, it's the same size that struck down in Arizona, that's all. Kenilworth, Utah. Wow, hold on. Oh, that's weird. I grew up. No way. Okay. That's weird. Okay, I grew up on a street, and like the street right next to the street that I grew up on, like where my girlfriend and stuff when I was like a teenager, was the street called Kenilworth. No way. That's crazy. That's so weird. Where did you hear that before? Okay. All right, let's move on. The Cure albums and the old goth music from that girl, man. She's smoking clove cigarettes, just because they're black. Okay, that's the goth lifestyle. Don't miss that. Boy, I dodged a bullet with her. Okay, all right, hold on. So here's the earthquake epicenter. And you may recall in my update yesterday, which is saved as a video over on YouTube, I talked about this spot right here, Huntington, the oil pumping operation. Then I further expanded upon the area and showed you all the pumping operations here and how they went up across the mountains. You remember this was in yesterday's update. Well, the new earthquake struck right next to Helper and Kenilworth, where it goes through the mountains, where I said, in yesterday's update, I'm not playing around about them going through the mountains. And I zoomed in right here and showed you this pumping operation. And I just randomly zoomed in on one of the wells. It might have even been this well that I zoomed in on. Okay, their new earthquake just struck right there. Directly there. So let's recap. A 3.3 earthquake struck, rare earthquake struck in Arizona, right next to the San Francisco volcanic field, which back in 2015, I put out a video about this, and a steam was coming from the whole eastern side of the volcanic field, and the mainstream media and the National Park Service all came out in denial and denied my video and everything. Well, that was when they said it was extinct, the whole thing. Here we are now when a 3.3 earthquake strikes right next to this volcanic field, and these are all volcanoes out there at the volcanic field. All the way across over to the east, you see each spatter cone and cinder cone. And then it goes up to the north, too. It doesn't just stop there. It goes from San Francisco up to the north to Cameron Butte. Anyway, that's where the earthquake is there. Same-sized earthquake struck at the pumping operation to the north. And if we go down into beautiful Texas, Mentone, Texas, let's go put the coordinates in and show you what's down in Texas. Most people know about it, but people internationally might not know. Texas has about as many drill points, at least as certain parts of Saudi Arabia, if not all of Saudi Arabia. So let me just show you some examples. So here we are, we're zooming in on the earthquake epicenter, and right next to the earthquake epicenter, you're going to see a bunch of tanks, pumps, jacks, pipelines, and the pipelines are just at the surface. They don't even bury them here. There's so many. And that's if there's a leak, they can just go and find it immediately without having to wait for it to come up to the surface. But a lot of it, and they just go on and on for miles, all these oil and gas pumping operations in Texas. Then it goes into overdrive, where there's just tens of thousands of wells packed on top of each other, and they just go, again, on and on for miles and miles. Every one of these is a different drill point with an oil well packed down at the center of it. And there's the pipeline out on the surface. Again, just goes under the road so they can drive, but they just flop it down on the ground and connect between the two. And it's all over the place. They've done whole Texas counties this way. Just look, every one of these little white pads, those aren't houses. Let me find a town so you can see what a town looks like in comparison to an oil pumping operation here. Here's Odessa, Texas. So this is what a town looks like. And it might even go through town, the drill points. Like if we zoom in on town, we might just find out that there's oil wells spattered throughout the town just going across there. But here's what it looks like around the town. All those little white pads are different oil pumps. This is just one Texas county. All of the counties are done this way, and some are even more, like that. Like this. And it goes on and on in all directions either way. All right, so when you have that many drill points on the edge of the craton, guess what happens? It becomes weak. Just like the weak points back up at the volcano, when you have that many volcanoes at that point, it's a weak point already, naturally speaking, with the volcanoes. Well, when humans drill in, it does the same thing. It's just going from up above as opposed to Mother Nature punching up from down below. So humans are punching in from up above. Same with up here, up in Utah, Kenilworth. And then we go back to the magma press point from underneath up at Yellowstone. So I would say it goes from magma press point down to oil drill point, down to magma press point, down to oil drill point. And it goes 3.0, 3.3, 3.3, 3.0. It's like two bookends of 3.0s on either side and 3.3s in the middle. Now guess what happens if we take both 3.3s in the middle and add them together? 3.3 plus 3.3 equals 3.46. Or we can round that up or down. You could. I mean, it's within a hair of a point. Either to 3.5 or a 3.4. And what do we get over on the West Coast? A 3.4 to 3.5. And again, if you take the 3.5 plus the 2.9, they equal the same. The middle point here and the middle point here, in between our bookends of earthquakes, And this is just the last 48 hours of 3 point something and greater, 2.8 and greater. We have an additional earthquake outbreak taking place up here in Alaska. And I've got to talk about this. I mean, this is something that I will get in trouble for talking about this, but I've got to talk about this. First of all, the coordinates of the earthquake itself kind of tell you what's there. It's a 4.0 and a little outbreak that took place, but Elmendorf Air Force Base. Now look, I'm not trying to create a controversy. I have to report on this and show everybody what's there, but then this ties in to everything else that's been going on over the past several weeks since just Bizarro World started to take place. And the Department of Defense came out and responded basically to one of my videos. Here's Anchorage, and they're triangulating from the Air Force Base. Now, I don't know why they're triangulating from the Air Force Base, but here's the base. I would say, I guess it's the closest. And it is the closest. It really is the closest. It's right on the backside of the base. Now, this is called Eagle Peak. This is called Polar Bear Peak. Never heard of them. They're on the east side of Anchorage as well. But it's close enough that I'm starting to get a little bit worried about the earthquake connection with directed energy weapons and the Air Force bases in particular that we're seeing get hit with the DEW, or at least the beam coming down to it. Now, I've got the thermal imagery turned on for GOES, and it's not showing any hotspot signatures up here, but I don't know if that's covering the northern hemisphere as far north. Might just cover the lower 48, the place marks that I have. Yeah, actually it does. Hold on. It only covers the lower 48 where the red box is. So we are not covering Alaska with this hotspot signature detection on Google Earth. Oh boy, well, you know what? Let's go back over to College of DuPage. Let's go over to continental sectors. Hold on, guys. Whoa, man, just had like a little coughing fit there. Wow. Inhaled some cat air. It happens. It happens, especially when they're right around me. Okay. Wow, man, that's like really, it's still back in there. Okay, well, I'm just going to have to make do. If I start getting a little raspy, it's because we have feline interference. But what I want to do here is just quickly just look through Alaska and see if anything's showing up here. We're looking right down here at the Bay of Anchorage and see if there's any kind of hotspot signatures that are showing up here on satellite now. Again, I don't know if there will be. I just want to see if we got an earthquake there in the last 24 hours. I'm not seeing anything, which is good. That's good. No hotspot signatures of any kind across all of Alaska. Well, a rare earthquake. Well, at least next to the Air Force Base, that's rare. Anchorage, it's not too rare to get an earthquake, but it is to be next to the Air Force Base at the time where we've got the other activity going on at the Air Force bases. Now, one thing I want to pay attention on this is look at the spread and the spacing on the earthquakes. 3.9, 4.0, 4.2, 4.1, but it goes out across the edge of the craton again. But it's all fours. In the last day and a half, 48 hours, all fours going across the whole area. Oh man, I am about to cough again. Hold on. Dang. Hey, how many times did I say dang yesterday? Take a drink. Take a drink of whatever you're drinking when I say dang. Bad habit, hard to break. Looking across the rest of the United States, we still have our warnings going in California, so none of those have expired yet. We're looking for 5.0 range, about a magnitude and a half higher than where we are now. But that's just 1.5 magnitude more. We're already at mid-range 3 across the whole region. Utah, Arizona, California, all mid-range 3. And we've got new hotspots and fires, huge fires, breaking out in Arizona on a clear day, 80 miles from where the earthquake just struck. Come on, a big fire right next to where the earthquake just struck? That's happening too many times, guys. Now, looking at the smaller activity, it goes down across over to the East Coast, where we are swarming out over on the Virginia, North Carolina border region. The earthquake down in the south here, down in Alabama, Belk, Alabama. Let's go look. Belk, Alabama, I mean. I could say it either way. It just depends on where I am in Missouri, how it's going to sound. What's down in Belk? Well, first of all, we have a boatload of hotspots. Look at that. Wow, I'd say something's changed. Wouldn't you? Suddenly, a boatload of hotspots appear across the southeast United States. All of a sudden. Please, they're all the little red dots. On the edge, the exterior edge of the craton. It went from the New Madrid down to the east-southeast now. Oh, my goodness gracious. Well, what do you think about that? We got an earthquake right in the middle of here, too, so I got to put the coordinates in here. Hold on. Right in the middle of all the hotspots, we got an earthquake. A rare earthquake. Belk, Alabama. And see where it says Fayette? Right across this county line. Here, all of these are pumping operations. All these little specks on the ground. Let me zoom in and show you an oil well at one. There we are. You could hopefully see the shadow on this oil well. And that's just one of a whole bunch. They're all the way across here, every little pad in the woods. Now it goes over to the west, and we could follow the little pads, and they kind of putter out right over here at the county line. Our imagery date is at least 3 years old, so they may have come back out and done more exploration in the county right next to it. Could be that that county was waiting to get approved, or maybe they had a regulation against it. But there's enough here. And again, I mean, you see how it just keeps going on and on. Every one is a different oil well. This is Alabama now. And the earthquake right there at Fayette. So are there more? There probably are. Let's go down here. I think there's more down here. Yeah, there are. Look. There's more down here to the south. And this looks like newer. This is a fracking operation, not just oil and gas. So all of these little pads out in the woods are also frac ops. So we're sandwiched between two of them. I would just say, look, there's probably some that they've put into here or that I'm just missing at this point. Hold on. I am. I was just missing them. They're right here. They're literally right here in the middle of the clear cuts. Okay, we are right next to them then. Hold on. There's more. There's got to be more. Looks like they have pads cleared and ready to go there, or they're older pads that have already been cleared. There is no doubt about it. And then we just go right down here, and our nearest pump op is right in here. There's our nearest, at least the one as of 3 years ago. That's within just a couple miles. I always look 6 to 10 miles, guys, so we're much closer than that. There's probably more over here. Yep, sure are. All these tanks. And you can see the shadow of the jack of the pump. So we are quite literally surrounded by pumping operations on the southern edge of the North American Craton. And look where our arrows are. Look, the earthquake is right on the arrow. Then, of course, back to Oklahoma, all those are drill points as well. So whether we're on the Craton edge, naturally speaking, from just a push, or whether there are drill points along the way, they're all getting hit as power is coming into the plate. Now, getting back to the West Coast, the slow slip, all the little red dots up in the Pacific Northwest. All of these. As of yesterday, 295. We're cut in half in the number of tremors. But out here in the ocean, the Juan de Fuca fracture zone, that's where all the energy is coming in from the northwest. What's this one? 2.7 just struck in Idaho. But energy is coming in from the northwest, and it's going into Laurentia, into the North American plate, across Washington and Oregon. That's all the red dots that I just showed you on the tremor map. But you're not just going to shift in Washington. When it shifts in Washington, we start moving inches of the plate at once. Or, well, let's just say it's centimeters, not even inches. But let's just say it's a little bit of movement. Even just a little bit of movement can cause a translation into the plate all the way across it, following the craton and going down the San Andreas. It is no coincidence that today, all of a sudden, the creeping section of the San Andreas starts to creep with mid-range 3.0 level activity after the plate starts shifting up to the north. The explosions came rolling in Oregon, right? Explosions detected yesterday all of a sudden, and in the middle of all that tremoring. Please, that's the plate shifting too. Now going up to the northwest, Washington. 2 sets of earthquakes on top of the whole state shifting with all those little red dots. Let's go look up these quakes. Washington State. Or is it Washington? Let's put the coordinates in. Take a look. See what's there. Get a sip of my drink here. Look where we are. We are below the crater now of Mount Rainier. Up inside of the mountain, though. Now, the mountain's not going to erupt. We're not going to see any kind of big blast, or at least not yet. But any earthquake activity there, especially when it's down below the crater, a sign that the volcano's being slightly perturbed. Just like the magma chamber over at Yellowstone. Going up to the surface at Yellowstone. Here in southwest Washington, let's go pull the coordinates right in the middle of this middle bunch here, and then on either side by about a mile. We're just going from Mount Rainier and we're going somewhere else. Look at this. Look, everyone. We're going from Mount Rainier volcano, and we're going right down smack in the middle of the rising dome inside of the crater of Mount St. Helens that blew in 1980. So both volcanoes are getting hit, but we know why. All of Washington is shifting right now as the Juan de Fuca is adjusting from out here, putting energy in and up into the plate. This is the bottom of the bathtub. This is the side of the bathtub and the top. And so energy is coming in from the bottom and it's going up into the side. And we get a bunch of vibrating as the plate shifts up here. And then, of course, because the plate is shifting up to the north, down to the south and over to the east, Craton Edge starts to compensate. And that's why the oil pumping operations and the volcanoes are getting hit over to the east. They're just the weak points in the plate. This power is seeking out the weak points in the plate, following the red lines on the plate boundary map, by the way, going down across California, the San Andreas, the creeping section, starting to creep. Now, it creeps and goes down to here, where a 1.9 is at a place called Pinnacles, California. Pinnacles, California is right next to Parkfield, California, the earthquake capital of the world, as they call themselves. It's on the San Andreas, and it's on the creeping section of the San Andreas, but look what's here. Yesterday, we were at a place called New Idria, which is right next to here. But let me show you where we are, really. Here's the San Andreas. You can see it in the mountains. It's a diagonal-shaped line in the mountains themselves. But the earthquake is just slightly off the San Andreas over at a place called, the county is called San Benito. Now look what we have here. See, these things are called frac wells. They're place marked out here. Tanks, pumps, jacks. Here's a set of tanks and pipelines connecting between a pump. Burn off or flare apparatus there too, in case there's any kind of emergency. They're across the field here and go down over to the east. Again, fracking out there, right on the side. Or you could say it's just for oil. But again, drilling right on the side of the San Andreas, right off of it. And look, this is like a line that connects down to the wells. It's like a fault that comes off the San Andreas. We might even be able to see it on the USGS fault zone map here. Let's see if that even shows. Yeah, it kind of does. It's right over here. What's this thing called? The Quien-Sabe fault zone. Quien-Sabe, Quinsabe. I'm not going to even try to pronounce that, but that's where we branch off to, where there's drill points. So we come down the San Andreas, and we jump over to the drill points. We also went back up into the Bay Area directly at Mount Diablo, which professionals said was not a volcano, but they had to come back out and acknowledge that it's got a bunch of tuftage on top, and that it, at some point, was a volcano, in the past. Speaking of volcanoes, up to the north, this stack of earthquakes is at Clear Lake, Geysers, Anderson, Cobb, California, depending on which quake you click on. But they're all centered around Clear Lake volcanic field. The name Geysers speaks for itself. I mean, there's a volcano there. Clear Lake, here's Clear Lake, and there's the Smithsonian place mark for it. And the number of earthquakes right here at the geothermal pumping operations drill points into this volcanic field, they're actually pretty small. The number of earthquakes is low. But we can trace it back up here. Look, it's a stepping stone path of quakes going back up to Northern California. And again, one more time, let me show it to you this way. Look at it this way. If you live in the Bay Area, check it out. Your earthquakes go back up across the San Andreas and feed into back up here where the feeder, the power is coming from. You got to remember, all this is shifting right now on land. So when it shifts up here, you compensate down here. And that's what's happening at the moment. And it's going to go up, the number of earthquakes and the magnitudes behind it. So the frequency and the amplitude, or the number of earthquakes and the power behind them, is going to go up. And that's taking place right now. You can see it funneling in from the northwest. Also, over to the east, do you see how these earthquakes, if we play a game of connect the dots, from 0.4 to 1.1 to 0.1 to 1.6 and back around, makes like a circle or a ring shape here between Lake Tahoe and Pyramid Lake. Now remember that these earthquakes today in 24 hours time make a ring shape between the two bodies of water because there's something there. Look at this. This is, I think, one of my other biggest discoveries. This thing. Wait, let me turn off the borders labels and zoom in on it. This giant oval shape here between Lake Tahoe and Pyramid Lake. It gets hit with earthquakes all the way around the outside edge and going right into the middle of it. Itself is lined with other volcanoes, and then on both sides of it, two basins or bodies of water or folds, and then on both sides of it, equal distance spaced as well. Equidistantly spaced, I should say. Steamboat Springs to the south, a geothermal field marked by the Smithsonian. Everybody knows about it if you live out there. And up here on the north side, same distance away, on the north side, the fumaroles at the Needles of Pyramid Lake. Those are old volcanoes. So giant oval shape, lined with volcanoes, hit with earthquakes around the outside edge, geothermal fields on both sides, basins on both sides. I think it's the remnant caldera of an ancient supervolcano. Now let me show you a confirmed ancient supervolcano to show you what a confirmed one looks like. Here. It's smaller though. This one. This is Long Valley Caldera. It too is lined with volcanoes. It too has earthquakes that go around the outside edge, and in the middle, it too has fires breaking out on the side of it, by the way, just like this one up here to the north did and still does. So two giant oval shapes at the California-Nevada border. The bigger one is up between Lake Tahoe and Pyramid Lake. And look, that's where the earthquakes surround it. So let's recap. Earthquakes surrounding what I think is an ancient supervolcano up here. Over to the west, we currently have a little outbreak at Geysers, but that's low. We can trace it all back up to here where the push is coming in. Same time, up here where the push is coming in, Mount St. Helens and Mount Rainier, pointing over to the magma chamber for Yellowstone and Yellowstone National Park, all being excited as the plate is shifting. Same time that's being excited, 3.0 range activity going over to the pumping operations in Utah, hitting at the volcanic field and fire now breaking out in Arizona, and then going over to 3.0 activity in Texas, and then a line of quakes going across over to the East Coast, including the pumping operations down in Alabama. Now let's move on. California, we stop on the San Andreas, right where the drill points are, and we jump across over to the supervolcano I just told you about. The confirmed supervolcano now, Long Valley Caldera. See where it says Tom's Place, California. We'll just pull the coordinates on this. So we have a ring of earthquakes around what I think is a supervolcano, and then we have a stack of earthquakes inside or right on the edge of the other confirmed supervolcano, Long Valley, right here. And an outbreak of fires on the side of there as well. That's where the earthquake swarm is, right here. And the hot spots and fires are there, where the red and orange place marks are. And there's the supervolcano. Across the border, we go over into Nevada, and let's just pull the coordinates here. We have oh wow, earthquake just struck here in Mina, Nevada. Mina, I think is how you pronounce it. At 23:36:23 UTC. It struck 8 minutes ago. Oh man, that freaks me out. When that happens, when I'm looking at an area or getting ready to look at an area, and even if just a small earthquake strikes there, it's just weird because the chances of an earthquake striking at any particular point that you're looking at on the globe, if you're down to like a kilometer or a mile, there's 200 million square miles on the planet. So for me to be looking at an area down to a few miles, even if I was looking at a 200-mile area, that would still be a 1 in a million chance. And if I've got it down to a 1-mile area like this, and I'm looking around and an earthquake pops off there as I'm talking about it, it's basically a 1 in 100 million chance. It's like winning the Powerball. To even have a small earthquake strike there, it's just the chances are insane. Okay. So here's Monte Cristo Hills Volcanic Center, and it got hit by a 6.5 earthquake several months ago, 4.5 months ago, and a 12-mile long surface fissure fracture formed in the ground here, spreading across from Monte Cristo, I believe, over to the west, towards Coaldale. Now, the new earthquake is striking just west of the highway here, and these are all volcanic buttes. The whole thing. It might even be part of its own ancient caldera, but Monte Cristo Hills is a volcanic center. Anyway, the earthquake swarm that carries on, and has carried on for the last 5 months basically, goes northeast to southwest or southwest to northeast. They connect back up over to the supervolcano here. So one stack of earthquakes on the California side of the border, the other stack of the earthquakes over on the Nevada side of the border. That's the dividing line between where energy goes over to the east, which we've already talked about, over to Utah, and where energy goes down to the south, down through Owens Valley. Let me show it to you on the USGS map here. So this is the dividing line between the supervolcano and Monte Cristo Hills. Energy tends to go over to the east, try to flow over to the edge of the craton, and it splits and goes down to Owens Valley and dead ends down into the Garlock at China Lake in Ridgecrest, California. And you can see the earthquakes have done that. But the number of earthquakes here is now completely fallen through the floor down at Ridgecrest. I'm talking like a handful. You can see it. There's a handful of like zeros. That's way low, number of earthquakes-wise, and power behind it. But look up to the north. The number of earthquakes is increasing around each supervolcano. It's coming down the San Andreas, and we had a push that came in yesterday across the valley. So where's the energy? It's stuck between the creeping section and the supervolcanoes, where I have the warnings going. I've got 4 separate warnings, plus a 5th if all the other 4 come together. The 4 warnings are 2 up north, Eureka, right here, in the center of where all the earthquakes are. We have a warning for a near 5.0 earthquake to strike, upper 4, low 5. Then, we have another warning going in the Bay Area, right here between our sets of earthquakes. Napa Valley, this is geysers, this is Bay Area, right in the middle. So 2 separate quakes are due there. And we're only 1.5 magnitude off right now. We're at 3.4. If a 4.9 strikes, that's a perfect earthquake forecast hit. So quite literally, we are 1.5 magnitudes low so far on that. That's nothing, really, if you think about it. Now, over to the east, same thing. Spread of earthquakes coming down and dead ends next to the supervolcanoes. It's a push coming in from the northwest. So we're about to go up, and the other 2 earthquakes are warned over to the east between the supervolcano and Owens Valley. So 2 up north, 2 center and east-south of California. That's 4 separate earthquakes, all due in the next few days, and they're all going to be most likely in that upper 4 to lower 5 range. Now, the 5th and final potential quake on this is down here to the south. And that might shift around the location as these other earthquakes hit. It's going to determine where we get hit to the south. I've warned from East LA down to San Diego. Now look at the line of earthquakes to the east. It's a diagonal line of quakes, but it's spread out now. It's not just on one fault. Look at it this way. Normally, We have a line of quakes that comes down the San Andreas and makes a straight line across the San Jacinto through Anza Gap, and it's called a slow slip location down here to the south. Just like the slow slip I was talking about up here with the red dots. Up in Washington, professionals have said that Southern California is also slow slipping, but they don't show us the tremors associated with that. Or maybe they do, maybe they don't. We don't know. All these small earthquakes, though, think of them just like the tremors. But they're spread out. They're spread out across the whole area. San Jacinto, Elsinore Fault, and the North San Andreas. All of this. This is all moving right now. Slow slipping. Now wait. All this is slow slipping, and we can connect it back up across the Mojave to Ridgecrest, which is, I guess, you could call that slow slipping. We go up to the supervolcanoes, and certainly those are vibrating, not tremoring. We go back up the creeping section of the San Andreas, and it goes right to the spot where all the shifting's taking place. The volcanoes are getting hit. There's no doubt about that. The spread of quakes going across the Craton. No doubt about that. So when you put it all together, it's a sign that the plate is shifting. The hot spots that are showing up. The hot spots, look, we can't explain the hot spots up in Washington as farmers burning their field when you come into the area and it's forests. You can't explain the hot spots out in the ocean either with farmers burning their fields. And I keep using that because that was the main go-to explanation for a lot of people on the hot spots on the New Madrid seismic zone. Which then an earthquake swarm struck right next to the spot where the hot spots were appearing. And I mean right down to Maynard, Arkansas, Success, Arkansas. What a name, too. Now that's the update for the United States. So we're looking for, what size earthquake would we look for down in Southern California? If the other four pan out, as I'm expecting, we would look for something in the 5 range or bigger to come in between LA and San Diego. Okay? Now let's talk about the rest of the planet really quick. I know this is mainly a US-centered update, but we'll turn back on our 0.0 and greater earthquake feed for the whole world and wait for it to refresh. So the Air Force Base getting hit up in Alaska, or next to it, that's freaky. The rest of the planet, hey, New Zealanders, Kermadec Islands was filled in at the middle fulcrum point between your previous sets of earthquakes. Look at this. See the red earthquake to the south? And see the pink earthquakes to the north? Well, they're almost red now. Between the two, that's where the big, larger, whitish-colored earthquake struck. That's our middle fulcrum point along the plate boundary. You can see the plate boundary there. So that middle point was filled in, the fulcrum point. Now, that happened again over to the west, Indonesia. The spot that I used yesterday as the example of a spot that was open with no earthquake activity has now been filled in by a 4.9 on one side, and over to the east, a set of 3s equal spaced all the way across Indonesia over to central Indonesia. In the middle, a 4.9 and a 5.4 struck. At that middle point, again, it's a perfect equal spaced series of events all the way across the whole area. And I've explained the equal spacing on this before about standing waves and showed you the standing wave graphic, which I think you might be able to see on the screen here now, that a standing wave is really just a series of other waves that combine, and when they combine, instead of getting jostly in a tank, they actually become organized. And the wave itself, as it moves, each wave point fills in the previous one's middle point. The fulcrum point between the waves get filled in by the new standing wave as it spreads across a region. And I think same-sized earthquakes are hammering off as the standing wave spreads out across the tank, Mother Nature's tank, which are the thick red lines around the world, which are marked here, for instance. So yesterday, this was open. We were waiting for the wave to arrive. There was a wave coming in from over to the east and going over to the west, which I think we can still see that, marked in pink. So the previous push spread now over to Indonesia. Aussies. Hey, Aussies. Again, you guys got hit again. And I did misspeak. I should have said Adelaide. What did I say? Sydney? You damn Yank. Yeah, I can hear it already. Like I told you, I'm your honorary bogan You can put me out in a double wide out in the outback and I'll be just fine. Blend right in. Okay, now let's just... Actually, I'll be a little pale. I need to get out in the sun a little bit. So let's go down here and take a look and see where are we going now down in Australia. Looks like a pretty interesting area, but let me just back it out and show you the greater area. Do you see that? Do you see where it says oil? Now, I was shocked to even find any kind of oil pumping operations down in here. I didn't know that there were any. But apparently there are some. Where are the wells? Well, dang. I said it again. Take a drink, guys. I said dang. Where are our oil wells? Well, this isn't doing it any justice. There were oil wells there. Maybe they got rid of them. Well, maybe need to take that place mark off there. Let's go ahead and delete that. Since they're not there anymore. Never mind. But there were some there, I guess, is what really matters. Now, I'm really interested in the edge of the Australian cratons, edges of the cratons, but this craton in particular. I don't know the name of it, but you can see it. You see the outline edge of it right here. We're smack in the middle of it. Why does that matter? Well, the whole continent just got pushed over the last week and a half. Go back almost 2 weeks, and a 4-point-something earthquake struck right up here. When that 4 hit, I issued the new warning for, 4 earthquakes to strike in Australia. One at the center of the plate, here. One to the southwest, down near Perth. One to the southeast, down near Adelaide. And one to the northeast. And all 4 hit. So the 4-point whatever came rolling in, and the warning was for upper 3s, and it was 3.5, 3.7, 3.1, 3.2. It was all in the 3 range, and it struck center, southwest, southeast, and then northeast yesterday with a 3.7. Now a new earthquake struck south central. All of Australia was displaced or moved by that event that happened 2 weeks ago. And now you can check it off the list. Up to the north, Japan, 4.0 earthquake striking deep down below the plate, and it's right on our letter D. And the previous sets of earthquakes here, take a look at them. They're from yesterday and the day before. So one lone deep quake down below Japan. We should probably go look at the Volcanic Ash Advisory Center at this point. See if there's anything showing up on there. I know Suwannee-Zajima was erupting. That's in South Japan. That was yesterday. I'm looking down the list now. I see Dukono, Kluchevskoye, 20,000-foot eye blast. 20,000 feet, nothing to scoff at. That's regular for Kluchevskoye, though. I'll show you where that is. Sabancaya, Reventador, Popocate Batal, Sanjay, Sabancaya, Nevado del Ruiz, Reventador, Villarrica in Chile. Unable to detect, but that usually means that they're... Let's see what they've got going on. Reported seismic activity. They can't identify it from the satellite. Okay? So there's some kind of eruption going on there. I'm looking for any new additions. Like I said, Suwannee-Zajima was on the list from a day ago. Here it is. From the 13th. 2 days ago. So no eruptions in South Japan in the last day. While a new deep earthquake comes hammering in on the underside. Gee, I wonder what that means. It would mean that there's going to be new volcanic activity coming in our open area in South Japan, and new volcanic activity coming in our open area to the north of Japan. Ebeko volcano. Remember Kluchevskoye I just mentioned? It's right here in Kamchatka. Shiveluch and Karimsky erupted this past week as well. That's 3 volcanoes up here on the peninsula erupting. Nothing in South Japan, nothing erupting over in Alaska, meaning that that's going to be the spot right next to it where it breaks and Ebeko should go. South Japan should go too, new eruption. And seismic activity, something bigger than what's on both sides. That's another forecast entirely. Over to the west, heading over towards Africa, 5 spread out there from yesterday, marked in a pink here, and going up across Asia, up into Russia, where a 4.3 came rolling in. But that 4.3 and the other 4s, all going to pool back up in Europe, and I've got a warning going right now for Cyprus. Let me show you where Cyprus is, in case you don't know. This little island right here. and it could go up into the mid to upper 5 level. But today, to seal the deal that the middle's under pressure, Istanbul was hit. And I mean right at Istanbul, right there at the strait, or the isthmus, whatever you call that, in between. And that's no freak accident by Mother Nature. I don't know what to call it. It's a sign that the interior of the middle point is under pressure. Now, I look to Cyprus because 5s were put into the system down here to the south, coming up to the north, following the arrows in both directions. Now, Europe, Bosnia, Serbia, going up to the north next to Austria's border. But I got to talk about this. Switzerland's back on the list now all of a sudden. And I don't even want to get into that. But Switzerland and CERN, and all of a sudden it's powered back up, and all of a sudden earthquakes returned back to Switzerland. Pretty weird, considering it was all staying to the south. Now we can check off Norcia, and we can check off Florence, and yesterday Campobasso was hit. All of Italy has moved on a mid-range 2 level in the last day, following the plate boundary, following the arrow. I would think also we would need to watch over to the east. Like I said, Poland should move with something significant in the next few days. Could be as big as what came into the south. Could go up into the upper 4 to 5.0 range. Big enough to cause damage in Poland. Keep watch out in Poland. Down to the south by southwest, another cluster of earthquakes. And where one ring overlaps the other, just like the wave tank that I showed you, all the same size. And look, centered around South Spain at Gibraltar. And that's no coincidence either. Energy is going to be going out to the Azores. This is the last stop out of Europe before it goes over to the west, over to the Azores. Let me show it to you on the USGS map here. Recapping, line of earthquakes coming out of the Mideast, going over to Turkey, and a line of earthquakes coming from the Indian Ocean, coming up and around the bend of the plate, and going around this way. Re-pulling back together here next to Cyprus, where up at Istanbul, we get a little breakout. But I'm looking here along the plate boundary. Then a line of quakes goes up across all of Italy and goes up across up into Bosnia and furthermore up into Serbia and Hungary, Croatia, Slovenia, but mainly Bosnia and Serbia. Then a line of quakes goes up the plate boundary in Italy and dead ends into Switzerland with CERN. And then another line of earthquakes breaks out and goes over to the west, right here at the Spain-Gibraltar region. Next stop, out here, and up here at Iceland. Now, reports have come out that Iceland, they're worried about an eruption taking place at Grímsvötn volcano, showing some kind of seismic signature popping up. Grímsvötn. That's, again, reports in my chat room from reliable sources talking about that. I guess I could go search it and see if it comes up. But, hey, look, there's been so many times where there's a push that comes out of Europe, and then these seismic signatures start to show up out on Iceland, and they mistake it for an eruption. And it goes to the different volcanoes there. The different volcanoes there start to rumble a little bit or shift or tremor out. But then an earthquake pops off next to it, like a 4 or a 5 or a swarm. So I would say Grímsvötn is not going to erupt. And like all the other times in the past several years when these little vibration outbreaks take place in Iceland, they're just mistaking the incoming energy out of Europe and they don't understand where it's coming from. So they don't know to expect seismic. They think volcanic because that's what they think. Of course, it's a huge volcanic island out there. Of course, they're going to think that. So taking you back to where I started, over here in the United States, spreads of earthquakes going down to rare locations like Alabama at the pumping operations, or Oklahoma swarming out at the pumping operations, or the New Madrid seismic zone with its hotspots. Or over on the West Coast, Arizona now. Come on, man. Let's go check the fire and just see how it's doing. This is live now, so I'm recording this, but we're looking at this live on Twitch. Let's go over and see our most current view down in Arizona. Yeah, look at that. Now, the San Francisco volcanic field just had its rare 3.3 earthquake, and this fire just started on a clear day. Look, just poof, it puffs out of nowhere. Now, over to the east, this one's been going for God knows how long. I mean, it's been going for the one over the east at the border. It's been going for forever. But this new one just pops off. It's 80 miles to the east-northeast to the San Francisco volcanic field. That's a hop, skip, and a jump, geophysically speaking, geologically speaking. Again, San Francisco Volcanic Field is right here. And the new fire just broke out west-southwest. And the earthquake between the two. The earthquake somewhere right in between at Flagstaff. Again, let me get that earthquake back on here so you can see how close this dang thing is. The earthquake is. So here is the earthquake epicenter. And let me turn down the rings. There we are. And compared to the fire location, so earthquake epicenter is right here. We already looked it up before. On the south side of the San Francisco Volcanic Field, southwest side. And the fire is just southwest of there. It can't be a coincidence. Cannot be. I will not dismiss any of these things as coincidence. Nobody can convince me to just omit it or ignore it or think it's a coincidence or whatever. You can blame it on whatever. I'm going to keep watch now from now on these things. It's concerning that the fires are breaking out next to where the earthquakes are taking place. And in this case, the earthquake struck first. It struck 2 days ago. Now a fire breaks out today, right next to it. They could be tied together. It's worth looking into. Do you have an earthquake plan? For real, you need an earthquake plan, especially on the West Coast. I mean, upper 4s to low 5s are enough to cause damage, but not infrastructure damage, usually. Just knock things off shelves, wake you up in the middle of the night, make you think it's going to be bigger, could go on for a little bit. So if things get knocked off the shelves or things are broken across the floor, do you have a change of clothes and a set of shoes by the side of your bed? You know, a lot of people, they might sleep in their clothes, but a lot of people don't. Might be in pajamas or less. So it couldn't hurt to have a change of clothes and a set of shoes by the side of your bed that you just keep there. And you could use it if there's ever a fire or a flood evacuation, or if an earthquake strikes or severe weather comes through. Well, you can grab those shoes. Because again, if things are broken across the floor, you're either going to be shuffling very slowly, trying to avoid those things. If it's dark in the middle of the night, you don't have your phone right next to you to flip on a light, you don't have power, and you're trying to go across the floor. Again, that's why you need the shoes by the side of your bed, where you can just reach over and feel for them, even if it's dark. Now, the emergency kit will have longer term, a couple days worth of survival gear in it. That would be the change of clothes, again, for exterior now, for getting outside of the house and being outside for a while, seasonal specific. Also, food and water for a couple days, sanitation, first aid, a form of communication and a form of a way to charge your mobile device. Flashlight and batteries never hurt, so that way you don't have to just pull into your phone battery and try to use it for both. And then, of course, you'll come up with better ideas than what I'm giving you. You guys can know your lifestyle a little bit better than me. And again, take into consideration the disabled, elderly, children that you have, and any medicines that you might require. The extra set of keys, extra IDs, extra paperwork like insurance, if you have anything worth insuring. I don't know if anybody has extra cash, but if you've got extra cash, I guess you could put that in there, so long as a debit card too. A prepaid debit card might not be a bad idea. Okay, so just, take the opportunity now to do it, and you'll be way better off than all the other people who just are either too cool to prepare, or they don't like talking about it or thinking about it. But they'll be the people that are asking you for stuff after it all hits the fan. It's the ant and the grasshopper story, where the ant stores up all year long and the grasshopper fiddles away in the sun. And then it starts to get to be cold outside, and the ant packs up and goes in with all its supplies and provisions. And here comes the cricket knocking at the front door. I didn't save anything. You got anything to spare? It's a little cold out here. You can let me in? So don't fiddle away all summer. That's the moral of the story, I guess. I'll be back if anything else goes down. And speaking of goes down, GOES satellite, GOES 17, goes down. Well, they say it's just a yearly thing now, I don't recall ever seeing any disclosures on any sites before. Maybe I missed it. I could have. Been watching for a long time, but I don't recall seeing any disclosures on any websites previously saying anything like, hey, we have some thermal issues with the satellite because of the equinox, and it's going to be like this every year from now on. And I just don't recall that. It might have been on there, but I don't recall it being up top, front, and center. That's weird. And that it would be up there now, which is even weirder, more weird. I don't know. What do you guys think? Everybody can see the chat room here as it's recording. If you think it's weird that College of DuPage and Goes NOAA have now announced, and as far as I can tell, it's not anything that they've announced in the past, that the satellite has thermal issues and cooling issues. And to stop the cooling issues, they have to take less pictures, and they can't cover the United States, West Coast. This is GOES satellite now. GOES from NOAA, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. And they got a disclaimer now on College of DuPage with a red exclamation mark that you click on. And it says, GOES is going to be down due to cooling issues for the equinox, and we're only going to be taking updated scans every 15 minutes instead of 10. And we're only going to be doing one scan instead of two. And no continental United States imagery at all will be available between the evening hours of 6 to 12 Z, which is Universal Time, which is basically from, I think that's 6 p.m. till midnight. So, we're not going to be able to show you the thermal imagery and stuff from GOES 17 because of the thermal equinox, the thermal issues. And I don't remember ever seeing that before, any kind of disclaimer like that. And now people are trying to tell me that that's every year that way. That it's every year that way. And I'm like, wait, we've looked at this for years. I don't ever recall seeing a disclaimer on there before saying they're not going to have continental United States imagery available twice a year during the equinox. That to me is just freaky. Anyway, yeah. So if you guys, if you think it's weird, press 1. And I will be back. If anything else goes down, we will save this as a video and upload it over on YouTube for a premiere back that everybody can watch. And people, again, are pressing 1 in the chat room. They think it's weird, too. We all think it's weird. We don't recall seeing it before. If it is every year, it's the first time that they put the warning up front and center about the disclaimer. And for it to have thermal issues in space, come on. Come on. Oh, we knew about the problem before we launched it. That's what they said. Uh-huh. Okay. Peace out, guys. Much love.